What is up, everyone? Welcome back to this episode of the Lambgoat Vanflip podcast, the number one metal hardcore / underground podcast on all of the internet. Today I am joined by Chad Johnson, not the Hall of Fame wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals, but someone as maybe as influential as a sports figure like that. Chad has done a lot for the music scene, quote unquote, the heavy music scene. He's found a lot of bands as an A&R person. He's worked with record labels, most notably like, Tooth and Nail. You also, Chad, have been the, driving force for Furnace Fest, obviously, as everyone can tell from the title of this episode. So first off, I want to say I'm very excited about the upcoming festival, which we are now technically a month away, so I can't even hold back my excitement for the most part. But I also want to thank you for not only bringing it back, but allowing Lambgoat to be somewhat of a part of it. I know we'll be there covering it. So, yeah, man, welcome to the show.
Dude,
and again, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Feelings are 100% mutual. And I feel, from my perspective, Lambgoat goes as far back as Furnace Fest does, and when we first announced Beloved as the first signing, the first band to come on board, for me, I don't know, whether it was just like instinct or like knee-jerk reaction, but my initial response was, I wonder what people are saying on Lambgoat. So I feel like that says a lot, because there wasn't any other website I went to see what anyone was saying. So Thank you for all the love you've given us and the support you've shown us. We're honored to have you as part of this. And I feel the same. I can't believe that we are almost inside the 4-week window, a couple of days, and we'll be inside that window. It's like, I actually try not to think about it, because instantly I have a list in my mind of okay, well, did we do that? What about this? What about that?
Yeah, got to cover all your bases, do the checklist and everything.
Yeah, and exactly.
And because, I wasn't around. I was around. I wasn't a part of Lambgoat in the earlier days. That's more of a recent thing in the last couple of years. But I was an avid reader of Lambgoat in the early 2000s as well, especially when the Furnace Fests were going on, the original couple were going on. And I was in a band around that time. So obviously all that stuff was on my radar. But, I actually remember the first couple, even viral posts about wanting to get Furnace Fest back up and running. And I can remember losing my mind about it, because I never attended the original Furnace Fest. I was too young. And I wasn't really, able to travel. I'm in Florida, so I wasn't really able to travel to Alabama at that current time. But I remember watching the DVDs, and I remember just seeing clips, of the festival and such. And so many bands and artists, kind of had moments there. I remember I know Andrew WK isn't a big scene act, so to speak, but God, I feel like his set in one of those Furnace Fests was it polarized him to a group of people that they normally wouldn't have been into, and then also just made the trajectory of his his music and his personality and his act just go through the roof, because that was an insane insane moment. It was crazy, but it was cool to watch.
No, and I was just going to add that I don't think anyone, myself as a festival promoter back then, or fans attending, could have predicted that Andrew would have received the level of affection and just outlandish eruption of celebratory craziness. That was that was at that time, and still to this day, the only time that I think we've booked an artist that was met with so much animosity from the overall community, and I get it. It didn't really make sense. It wasn't like we could say, dude, Andrew's he came out of this crazy metalcore scene and now he's doing this new thing. It's just he came out of nowhere and had had, videos on MTV with blenders and ever extending, amp guitar cable lines. And I don't know, it was just, crazy.
No, it was a really, I really didn't, I mean, not to go down the Andrew WK rabbit hole, but I really didn't know how to take that when he came out as Andrew WK. It was, party hard stuff, and the party music it was fun. That album is really fun. And I think seeing him play Furnace Fest, really did kind of like go, oh, okay, well, I kind of understand what this guy's about. But, before then it was just like he was on like Ozfest, and he was more of a, rock and roll new metal. He wasn't new metal, but he would play with a lot of those bands. So,
yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure for him that it's like, where do you fit him? What's his box?
Yeah, seriously.
Or even the, like a genre that we could say he's kind of this. But I think for anyone who was there for either of the times that he would have played, I think he played twice. I could be wrong, but I feel like he played twice, and both, but especially that first time, because the first time nobody had any idea.
Yeah.
By the second time, everyone was like coming with high hopes and expectations for a party. But that was incredible.
Well,
sweet memory.
He was definitely someone that I thought like I said, when the initial kind of like murmurs came out about, you were not you, but your partner was Grimes was sharing some kind of like, feelers about like, hey, would you guys be interested in something like this or whatever? I remember seeing that, and I remember going like, I would definitely be interested in it. And I was like, you'd have to have, some of those bands back again. Not saying just those bands, but I was thinking,
sure,
Andrew's got to be one. I mean, that's like a big monumental moment for the festival. But enough about Andrew. Let's get into the actual festival.
Cool.
So you guys started in the early 2000s. You did a couple, 3 or 4 events. How did that come about? Like, how did you kind of get into the festival kind of, line of work? Because I honestly think, like, because I've attended some bigger festivals in the last 20 years, like Bonnaroo and some other festivals, and I've seen the influx of like how big the festival scene is now. Like, there's festivals all over, for all types of demographics, all types of genres. But I can remember as a young person, I can remember watching, the Furnace Fest DVDs, the Hellfest DVDs. And then I remember even attending the last Hellfest. I was able to attend the last Hellfest.
Oh, cool.
And that was my introduction to like festival life. It wasn't like camping on site or anything like that, but it was like, dude, I remember like I would explain to people when we would go to Bonnaroo, and I'm like, this is cool and everything. Like, I enjoy this, but like, man, I did this like 15 years ago or, 12 years ago at Hellfest. And like, looking back, like, that just blows my mind that, people like you and people like that put on those types of events were able to even get those off the ground and get them going, and how big and how well received they were.
Yeah. I mean, I that's a good point. I don't think that I often travel back to consider like how it all started, but the festival, Furnace Fest, grew out of local shows that were happening on the ground in Birmingham that I was putting on very poorly, that I was advertising very poorly, that I didn't know what I was doing. I was a 20-something-year-old fresh out of college, moved to Alabama to get married, and I just loved music, and I was a fan of music, and so I didn't really want to work for a moving company my whole life, and I decided after a year of 2 men in a truck that I needed to try something else, and Furnace Fest just kind of came naturally from the scene and the environment that was already being cultivated, not exclusively at all, or even solely by me, but by the whole like crew of people that were putting on shows, that were bringing in bands, that were touring with bands, there was just like the early days of both the Christian underground heavy world, and then just I can't really call it mainstream, but just like the regular heavy scene of music, where it was like so much was happening that I feel like Birmingham just kind of enjoyed the overflow. And And Furnace Fest was like, well, since we already do concerts, what if we just kind of brought everybody together for a weekend? And originally the events were I think like $40 for 3 days, or maybe $50
Yeah.
at the gate. They were not. I mean, they were well attended by I guess by contrast to like a local concert. There were maybe a couple thousand people there instead of a couple hundred. So it was like, whoa, everyone's coming together. But I think it really has taken this reset and bringing Furnace Fest back for me to realize the connection and the way in which the festival, even vicariously through DVDs, we're able to pull on the heartstrings of people like you in different states that hadn't actually been there firsthand. And so the whole thing has been wild and wildly unexpected. And it's funny. It's like, I feel like the model, if we were to look at this from a business model, it would be lose money 4 years in a row, put together a like completely half-assed, really sketchy festival with no insurance, no barricades, no security, hardly, like basically do it all wrong, and then let the thing die for like 17 years and then bring it back and do it right with people that know what they're doing, and it'll be successful. It's like, and then if you want to for extra flair, add in a global pandemic just as like a, added challenge. So
yeah, I mean, that was I honestly, cause we bought tickets, like I bought tickets, kind of early on, honestly. Wow. And, I didn't want to run the risk of not being able to cover it and then not have a ticket. So sure. we the group of us bought tickets. Not everyone that with Lambgoat, but like my friend party that's coming with me.
Yeah.
We bought tickets, and it was one of those things where I was like, man, I can't miss it. Like I can't let this chance go by. So I did that, and I remember it. I was like, okay, well, pandemic started popping off, and I was like, all right, well, maybe like 6-8 months down the road or whatever, it'll dissipate and we can enjoy Furnace Fest or whatever. And I was really, really, really bummed when it did get delayed a little bit, and it wasn't really I don't know how long it took for you guys to announce the new dates, but I was like, oh man, that's a total bummer. But I am glad that we are, like I said, about 4 weeks out, and it feels like we're going to be able to do everything. And you were saying earlier, one of the big questions I had personally was the barriers. Are you going to have barriers, or is it going to be something kind of like a traditional, kind of like hardcore metal show where you can get on stage dive, and it's kind of like that intimacy?
Yeah, it's a challenge, because I think for a lot of us, two things are at play. One is there's a level of organizational structure that never existed originally. And there's also a level of maybe what's the word? I don't know, common sense that's with us now. So right. Unfortunately, there will very much be barricades, and really it comes down to a venue. The venues are much more. They've come a long way from where they once were, and so there's between venue and sort of legal responsibilities. It wouldn't be possible for us to put on Furnace Fest where we want it and still go back. Plus, to me, I'm kind of like, I feel like a lot of hardcore kids, in theory, love the idea of being able to like flip off of monitors and like stomp on each other's heads and like all these crazy things. But now it's like everyone's like in their 30s and 40s. Right. It's like I feel like secretly every hardcore kid's gonna be like, man, like I'm so thankful that you guys put in the barricades.
Right,
Don't tell anybody. Right. But no, I wish there was a funny thing going around when we first started this, and a friend started a like hashtag that was something like no no barricades, no rules, no, I can't remember what the other thing. Oh, no barricades, no rules, no alcohol. And and I feel like that would have been, like if we're gonna go back to the original, like let's talk alcohol because we didn't have any. And so if we're gonna keep it really, so this time it's like you get barricades, but you can drink.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
give and take, give and take. And plus, like,
right.
Like we were talking, like you just mentioned, not we were talking, but you just mentioned, I was thinking, it's the gathering of the 40-year-olds for the most part, this festival, which is fine. I'm almost, I'm almost up there. I'm in my late 30s, but yeah, I expect everyone for the most part to be around my age or a little older. And those kids, even though they may not have enjoyed alcohol back then,
right,
chances are they're enjoying alcohol now.
Chances are pretty high.
Yeah. So that seems to be with all the hardcore kids, or the even I'm not even going to say the other thing, but yeah, the hardcore kids usually end up dabbling in drinking and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to it. This has been something that me and my little group of friends have been talking about for over a year now. So we are very excited. And on top of that, you guys have kind of like stayed true to the original kind of lineups that you guys put on in those first couple of years. I mean, you have added in some newer bands, obviously. You have to do that, and the bands that you have added in are along the same lines as like the core demographic or the core genres of the bands you had on previously, like bands like Knocked Loose. Or, they definitely are kind of like a heavier, hardcore crossover kind of band. They're not a crossover kind of,
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no one take me on the coals for that. But then you have like See You Space Cowboy, who is like that. We had Connie on the show over a year ago. But when I heard that band, I was like, man, this is like, I get a little nostalgia from the sound of that band because it does sound kind of like early 2000s metalcore. And
absolutely,
on top of that, a lot of the bands that you have on there, whether they're new or old, we've covered on this show already. So I'm looking forward to even, hanging out with them. Some we've had in person, some unfortunately we've had over Zoom like this with you and I right now due to the pandemic. But it'll be good, it'll be a good kind of time just to like get together with everybody. And it just seems like, a family reunion, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what we hoped for, was a family reunion. And it's been very hard, man, to go through the pausing and the most recent vaccination kind of extra steps and just, that like as much as I would love to continue seeing everybody just come together and like it's a family it's like I guess it wouldn't be a family reunion without some drama and some real world challenges and some logistical nightmares and some like, well, what about this or what about that? And but I feel that the heartbeat from the start was how do we capture as much of the original rhythm and heartbeat of the festival as we can, but while also honoring the modern day kind of like the torch bearers of that era, like how do we, and that wasn't necessarily a reference to the really epic metal band from Birmingham, but pun now intended. But I think but their era is a great example. That there are bands on Furnace Fest that weren't around in maybe the early 2000s, but
are influenced by some of those
we're
bands,
influenced, and that was one of the two qualifications was it a band that played one of the originals? If that answer is yes, then we should be doing whatever we can to try to make it work. And then the second was, are they a band that may have been influenced by that era? And if the answer to that second question was yes, and so okay, then let's try to see if we can make something work. So I appreciate you recognizing that and pointing that out, and I hope that just as for me, I feel like I am discovering bands that are incredible that I didn't know existed because I've been so far removed from this world, and it's been incredible to just like, whoa, this is
Plus, I mean, if we really want to get into the nitty gritty of it, you know, we're going to have a bunch of 40-year-olds that probably haven't checked out new music in quite some time. And, you know, these bands that are similar to the bands that were previously booked, you know, it shouldn't be too hard for them to like one or two of these newer acts that you kind of brought on, which thus grows the scene a little more, you know, not educates, but, you know, educates, you know, the older user to some maybe of the newer stuff coming out, and then reinvigorates, you know, the music scene a little bit more. What were some of the, like, obviously you have a lot of the bands, especially the bigger bands coming back and playing some of the festival. What were some of the bands that you weren't able to have on the festival? Whether it's from they're no longer playing and they weren't going to get back together, or logistically it just didn't work out.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see. Here, let me actually. I'm gonna go to this file on my computer where we keep all of this.
The wish list.
Yeah, it really started as, I'm gonna go through that. There's a file. We've from an organizational perspective, we've used Google Docs for everything. So I'm waiting for Google to send us a check, an endorsement check, but it hasn't shown up yet. But let's see. There's a tab on this thing called the ideas, band ideas tab, and I'll just go through some of the ones that we had pursued that didn't work out. So a band like Elliott was obviously way up there for us. Gorilla Biscuit, Strong Arm. Let's see, it's funny to see quite a few of these that actually did work out.
Surprising,
which is really cool. Yeah, Snapcase, the Red Chord, The Story So Far, This Day Forward.
Now, some of these were on the original lineup, right? Like the original announcement.
Yeah, a few of these were on the original lineup, and then changed. Probably the one. It seems like man, what are the two? Like the Hope Conspiracy, Bane, Strong Arm, Madball. Like there were quite a few that I think either we had gone after, or it, for one reason or another, it just didn't work. And I can't recall exactly, but I want to say that in total we may have reached out to well over 200 artists. I mean, the Botches, the Coalesces, like pretty much almost any band you could think of that fit this world. It's very likely that we had at least tried to make contact. And out of the 200, we ended up with our 90 artists that I'm extremely thrilled and honored to partner with. But yeah, there was a lot. It was always frustrating when it felt like you were making a little progress with someone, and someone will be like, well, we talked to the guitar player, or my friend, knows the manager, or like, we reach out to the agent, or however the lines of communication might happen, to then realize like, well, actually this person's gone, or this thing's getting in the way, or there's this other event, or it just a lot of stuff that you pretty quickly realize that no matter how many artists you chase, you maybe, if sort of, everything kind of aligns perfectly, you maybe end up with half of those as confirmations. And I think I just felt like I had to learn to be really grateful for everyone that said yes, and recognize that everyone's got life, everyone's got stuff going on. Everyone, to ask a band to get together, especially the reunion sets. Like for me, one of the hardest ones was the band Grade. We had asked Grade to play. Man, I can't think of the name of the record right now. The Grade album that I'm pretty sure everyone would be like, oh, that's the record, Under the Radar.
Okay, yeah.
It came out in 1999, and Kyle, the singer of that band, we talked over Facebook, I believe, and I think he had either undergone or was about to undergo some kind of like throat surgery, or had something going on with his throat. So there was some like that where you realize that it's not because people don't necessarily want to get back together and have this incredible hoorah with all their friends and fans, but that there's been realities of life that
Old
have hit
man
them
issues
that,
sometimes, you know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
It can be it could be anything.
Yeah.
So anytime a band would say yes, the Chariot was a big one. I mean,
Oh, don't even mention it.
I probably asked Josh, like, he could tell you for sure, but I would guess that I at least heckled him like 5 times over it. And
I'm sure every time it was a definite no, right?
yeah, every time. Yeah. And it just got, and then there was even like at one point, somebody had created a fake Furnace Fest announcement that said the Chariot, and it looked like any one that we had released. So it looked very plausible. And then Josh was kind of upset, and I was like, dude, like somebody literally took this. And so it was funny though. It's funny because we had to release like a joint statement, you know, that like, sorry that this was not, you know, the festival or the band's intention. And
yeah, when I had Josh on, I was lucky enough to do that pre-pandemic, and it was an in-person, you know, kind of like hangout at the house. And
oh man, he's amazing.
He definitely is. He's probably one of my favorite scene frontman, if not frontman of all, you know, of all bands, because he actually gives everything and leaves it out there. But
yeah, he really does.
One of the things was, man, when is the Chariot getting back together? And I kind of got from the conversation on record and off record that it's probably never going to happen, and that's kind of a bummer. But you know, if it were to happen, being at Furnace Fest or maybe playing somewhere in Douglasville where, you know, home show or whatever would be what it would be. But, you know, I was thinking, man, it would be really great to have them play that or, you know, whatever. But it is
absolutely.
What it is.
And that's where I feel like I develop even more respect for someone like Josh, because I don't think anybody could throw any amount of money at Josh that would convince him that, okay, now this is a good idea. I mean, there's a level of artistic purity that oozes out of him where it's like, that was in the past and it happened for the time it was meant to happen, but now is now. And I'm living in the present, and I'm not interested in going backwards. Yeah. And it's like, man,
he never really has been, you know, he left Norma Jean at like the peak of at the time, the peak for Norma Jean, and then, you know, he stepped into the Chariot, and, you know, I don't necessarily know because I'm a fan of both, so I have bias, right? I don't necessarily know if the Chariot ever got bigger than Norma Jean did with Corey in it, but I know that obviously Norma Jean with Corey is still going on. But, you know, Josh is a man of mystery, so to speak. You know, he leaves you wanting more, and I think that's kind of what his goal is. And
I think so too. I think that he knows that. I don't know. It's just like to just keep the focus on what he's presently engaged in. Sort of, it only like builds the mystique behind everything else that he's done, and it's like. Kind of makes you want to go and like, all right, actually, I want to, like, how can I collect more of those records, or how can I like pick up some of that old merch again? Or,
I'm constantly looking for it on the internet. So
right. So I think it builds demand. And,
definitely. And
my schemer. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're more important. Go ahead.
Yeah, my schemer promoter Furnace Fest brain is like, what, you know, like what else could I do, you know? And that's where I just like. How else can I spin this but it was like, it didn't matter what I tried. Josh was very clear and very kind and very transparent about it. And it was like, wow, of all the rejections, I feel like there may have been others that felt similarly and just didn't say it, but I felt like his was the most unique because of what he was saying and the reasons why he wasn't, because I think to so many people, it was such a no-brainer. Oh, well, you know, Josh literally announced from the stages of Furnace Fest that he was leaving Norma Jean. What a perfect, you know, way to come back and do something that kind of celebrates that season of life.
We're more than likely going to see him like play with Norma Jean again than with the Chariot guys. You know, I don't know if that. Because I know Josh will be there. His new group.
Well, unfortunately, he won't be there as of this week. So the Korn tour
Oh yeah, the rescheduling
got
of the corn tour.
rearranged, got
Yeah,
rescheduled, and unfortunately, the dates on that tour coincide exactly with Furnace Fest. So it's a bummer. But yeah, he's no longer. So we're waiting for the we have an email out for a reply, but it's like, how do you replace Josh? You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
He's a
no.
big
At the end of the
part.
day, we kind of just have to admit, you know, that there's no replacing. Like, yes, we can fill a slot so that we maintain the same number of artists, but you can't just be like, well, artist A, here's the exact, you know,
Hmm.
here's the perfect fit with artist B.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
unfortunately, it's
I'm sure it was a little easier too for you to get some of these bands because some people may not know that you do have long-term kind of relationships with some of these bands because like I said previously in the intro, you've done some A&R and you've worked at record labels over the course of your tenure in the music industry,
mm-hmm.
and you found bands like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you also found Norma Jean and everything like that.
I didn't. I did. That's actually one that was always nearby, and I know of them because they were from Atlanta. But technically, I didn't find them. But I did have the joy of discovering Under Oath,
Yeah.
and Under Oath was a band that would I feel like them and Norma Jean were for a season almost always around each other
Oh, yeah.
and doing something together, and so
Also, He Is Legend too, right? You kind of
yeah.
had a hand in He Is
Mm-hmm.
Legend. Yeah, a lot of your bands have been on this podcast, and obviously Under Oath and He Is Legend are two of my cornerstones for back in the early 2000s. So it was cool to
Yeah.
have those guys on. But I'm sure it was really easy to kind of ask those kinds of guys that you've had long-term relationships with, like even Beloved and other kinds of acts like that. So. Was it more of a struggle to get? I mean, obviously, it probably wasn't even a struggle to fill the lineup because you have such a core group of bands to choose from. Where you're reaching out to bands like Coalesce and Botch, which unfortunately I'm bummed that either of those bands. I didn't even know that you guys were reaching out to them. I'm kind of bummed now
Yeah.
that they're not gonna
Right.
be
Now
there.
I shouldn't have said anything. What band do you hate, Dave? That's the one. I'll just tell you all the bands that you dislike. Those are the ones that we went after. So you'll have no sad feelings.
I don't hate a lot of bands, but
That's
yeah,
good.
it's definitely a bummer. But I mean, again, like that brings me to my next question. What are the chances? Because obviously, it does take a lot of time, effort, and energy to kind of put something on like this, and it may not have the same effect if you do it again a year later. But would you see you guys bringing back like Furnace Fest next in 2022 if everything goes according to plan or if everything goes well?
I think that's the big unknown. I mean, I guess to me there's still originally, and even in the kind of like little blurb that we wrote to go alongside with Furnace Fest, it says something like the one-time resurrection of whatever. I can't remember the exact phrase that we used, but we literally used the one-time thing because the whole idea has been this is a one-off to celebrate the season that we all loved and valued and enjoyed, but this is never meant to be anything beyond that. And so I think that for me it's still really hard to get past that idea because thanks to COVID, we haven't even fulfilled the first one. Like we're still like we're still 4 weeks out from fulfilling the first one, and I guess I just feel like as a human, a whole lot of responsibility and weight on my shoulders to just like do a phenomenal job with what we've been given. But I think it's tough. It's like to be completely transparent, the level of interest and excitement behind this has absolutely boggled my mind. It's been completely it's caught me completely unaware. So to me, I guess one of the maybe indicators that I'm looking for is what people are saying. So because I always wanted Furnace Fest to be a festival for the people and by the people, and and not not, I don't know. I just wanted it to be something that like came from the ground up and was an answer to what people were asking for, and not just my way of trying to gain recognition or popularity, or I don't know, some other
Right.
stupid, selfish, self-serving kind of aim. So I think in this case, it's like, if at this Furnace Fest, the number one question is, are you guys doing another one? Then I feel like, okay, well, maybe this is what the people want, and
Yeah.
if that's what they want, then I think it's something we have to look at. At the end of the day, it's like, it's just, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to see past September 26th, 2021, because of how like in the mud of putting this thing on we are, like how in the thick of it we're currently, it just where we're at. And so a long-winded way for saying I don't know. And I wish that it was, yeah, it's like it's kind of, it's sobering to hear, even in the news today, that it's possible that we'll continue to live with COVID well into next year. Like it's just hot. Everything's I don't know. Everything's a little, certainly a little heavier right now because of the fact that we're kind of dealing with ramped up cases and concerns related to that, and protocols that were not in place a month ago that are now. And so they're just, that there's definitely been a kind of a rude awakening for what it takes to bring something to the finish line in this climate.
Right. And that's kind of like why I was asking a little bit about maybe if it's something that's going to continue to go, because obviously with the current situation as far as like, pandemic COVID goes and this, that, the other, there may be some people that won't want to come, obviously, because of such, things. But, obviously those people probably are hoping for, another round of Furnace Fest in the later years. But also, I think that there's just a missing, there are festivals that do heavy music, right? But it's also coupled with the bands that sell, millions of records and such like that. Like you'll have, your big bands like Slipknot, Five Finger Death Punch, Disturbed, all these festivals that are, catering to, heavy music, so to speak. But I think what, is missing is is something like Furnace Fest or a Hellfest or anything like that, because those festivals were more niche than the big rock festivals that are so popular now. You know what I mean? And I do feel like if there were some, because now there's no Warped Tour, and then not saying that Warped Tour and Furnace Fest are the same thing, but there is a lot of crossover. There is some crossover there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think there is a void for that kind of in the market, and I personally would love to see more of that void filled, because I think, and I'm not gonna speak ill of like Slipknot festivals or big festivals that have these bigger acts on there, because obviously they do bring a few bands from our scene into their lineups, and that does grow the scene a little bit. But I feel like with the internet the way that it is now, because I mean you guys did festivals in the early days of MySpace, even it wasn't even like a thing, so you have so many more resources available to you to not only reach the older fan base, but to create and gain a bigger fan base.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I think back when we originally put on Furnace Fest, it was like I don't know, so I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like a chat room, or like message boards were like the place where you would go to talk. Like now, it's like, oh, there's a comment section. If somebody announces something that someone else doesn't like, it's like you just kind of like scroll through the comment section and watch all these crazy interactions happen. But it is really wild to think, especially the first year in 2001 even, how hard it was for us to get the word out. Like it just wasn't the same. Like, yes, there was the internet, but it wasn't utilized, and it wasn't.
Oh my God, it's so archaic if you actually want to compare it.
Right. It's just unbelievable. So now to be able to, I think one of the most frustrating things about this year, and probably one of the most compelling arguments for me personally to consider another Furnace Fest year, is the reality that most of our international guests will not be able to join us because of the COVID travel stipulations. So that's hard. I mean, that was one of the coolest things to me about the original Furnace Fest, is that there were always people from other nationalities, always people from different countries, even if there was a few of them, but they were always there. And it was just like this cool, like you're standing next to this hardcore kid from Coleman, Alabama, and then right next to you is someone from Tokyo, Japan, you know, and it's like, wow, this is, or our friend from Italy that would do all the photographs, and these crazy, I mean, it's like,
I definitely experienced that. I experienced it myself when I went to the last Hellfest. It was one of those things where, I mean, the attendance may not be like in the high upper thousands, or so to speak. Like Furnace Fest was a couple thousand, 5,000 attendance, but of those 3,000 to 5,000, there are people that are coming from all over the world, and like that. At the time, it didn't really hit me, but now, growing up and just like, geez Louise, man, that was like a really cool thing, that something like that would draw all over the world. And again, like you're saying, the internet wasn't the internet today. It was a much more archaic thing. And so it was insane to see that. And, again, I'm trying to always think of like, how can we grow this little group that we have, because like a lot of these bands are great, and a lot of these bands need financial compensation, unfortunately, to continue doing their art. And it's something that, I want to kind of help in any which way that I can to grow this little, club that we have.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I feel very much, I don't know, like a strange warmth that I get to play a small part in that again, because it is a beautiful community. And it is, to me, it's always been what's I guess been most interesting about the way that I've felt like the hardcore world and the sort of underground scene worked, was that once you were a part of that, even if you disagreed on any other level for any other aspect of life, you could agree on a album or a band or a show or something. You could find the common ground very easily between two people, and it's I feel like we need a whole lot more of that.
Yeah, well, hopefully Furnace Fest does actually do something along those lines. I think, and it being something that is happening kind of on the tail end of a lot of people not having gone to an event in general. I went to a Madball show. You brought Madball up earlier. I went to a Madball show. It was my first show back as far as like, a touring act coming to town. Right. And it was a tiny venue, and I've already talked about it on this podcast, but it was insane. And I was actually I'm a little worried, because people are so pent up, not pent up, but, like they've been pent up, and they've, it's going to be a crazy time. And I'm assuming it's going to be an even more crazy time at Furnace Fest because of the scale of it all,
Yeah. And I had this conversation months ago, maybe even over a year ago. Actually, I take it back. It was this past March when we first kind of announced the lineup for this September date. And I said, man, I just don't know how people are going to respond because of our sort of fear of being around each other. And obviously at that point, the vaccination process was very minimal, and there was a lot more fear in the air. But I said, I just don't know how people are going to respond to a band that they would normally have gone crazy for. And he just said, man, as soon as the first note or the first drum stick hits the drum, like it's going to be pure pandemonium and people are going to go crazy. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure that I see that. And then I was watching kind of randomly some of the turned on Hulu and was watching the Lollapalooza live stuff, and I was like, wow,
Oh yeah,
he's right, because they're going. I mean, it's like nobody is.
yeah. They're all ass to elbows and stuff. Yeah, it was crazy
Right.
turnout for that.
It was wild. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's something I'm really looking forward to. Just being around. I mean, it sounds bad to say, especially in these times, but I'm looking forward to being around a large group of people, especially
Right.
a large group of people that share the same, passions about music and just like whatever the hardcore style, the hardcore community is about and stuff. But outside of that, like what bands are you looking forward to the most on the roster? I know you have your personal favorites, so like, what's really sparking your interest? Like because
well. Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, I think for sure to me, I think what's going to be most exciting is that I get to enjoy this Furnace Fest with my family. With my daughter was born. Let's see, she would have been born the second year of Furnace Fest, and so it's crazy to think that I'm going to Furnace Fest with my 16-year-old son, my 20-year-old daughter, my wife, and so I've been listening to a bunch of bands with my son especially, and I would say without a doubt that Turnstile is the one that he and I are collectively most excited to see. I think for me, it's like I'm of course really thrilled to see all these bands that I haven't seen in so long, like Beloved and Few Left Standing, and just all these bands that I haven't seen in forever. But I think that some of the maybe like the Eras, the Turnstiles, the Touches, the Defeaters, like bands that I've actually never seen in my life are ones that I'm like, wow, I've never like. I kind of know what Under Oath's going to look like on stage. I have a pretty good idea in my head of what that's going to look like, how it's going to sound, and how people are going to respond. But I don't know how. I really have no clue what Be Well or Counterparts or See You Space Cowboy or any of these bands that I've never seen them live. Right. So I don't know what to expect, and I feel like maybe selfishly, I'm really looking forward to being the like fanboy that gets to experience some of these new favorite bands for the first time, and while of course celebrating all the ones that I haven't seen in years and years, and reliving memories and moments and lyric lines that I've been listening to this whole time. I just haven't been screaming along with 10,000 people. So.
Yeah. What speaking of your son and your daughter being of like an age to where they're probably into their own music and everything like that, and they could very well be into this style of music, obviously because of you and whatnot. Do they have any kind of like? Did they give you any kind of like, hey, you should get this band on or that band on, or did they introduce you to anything that you kind of weren't really necessarily thinking about putting on?
No, I don't. I'm looking at the flyer just to make sure that I don't. That I'm not forgetting someone. No, I don't think that it was so much them bringing up artists. I think it was more. It's probably been much more me introducing them to artists. Like, hey, listen to this band. What do you think of this band? And we driving in the car, especially, put on a song from Era. Or Misery Signals, or a bunch of these.
Don't bring up Misery Signals. That was someone that I was really,
like their
really
name is
to.
Unfortunately prophetic. It's like, why'd you guys have to bring the sorrow with you?
Yeah.
But no, it's frustrating that the border situation between our countries is. Was not thinking about Furnace Fest first and foremost, which they should be. It's like, what's wrong with them?
So does that mean? But because I didn't really understand why certain bands dropped off, and I kind of assumed that Misery Signals was something along the lines of like the border, but then that made me very worrisome about like Comeback Kid, because I know they're close.
Right.
So.
Well, it's as soon as we got the email from Misery Signals, we immediately reached out to Comeback Kid with the same like, hey, is this going to affect you guys? And Comeback Kid, I mean, I think there's a bit of a different dynamic between the bands in terms of work and what they can get away with from a time perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not mistaken, Comeback Kid are flying from Canada to the UK and then are like spending, I don't know how much time there, and then are like flying from there here. And then I think they may have to spend some amount of time here. I don't know. The whole thing is like crazy, but they have this like masterminded solution for how to make it work. So they were like, no, we're good. We're going to be there. It's all we got this plan. So
well, that's good. I was really worried about that.
But it's just made it right. I mean, it just made it much harder. And I think for a lot of festivals that included artists, international artists, that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many lineup changes, is because they just can't, they're not able to make it work. So from a travel perspective.
And that brings me to another question that I was just thinking of. Do you expect, or are you forecasting for anyone that's like kind of, the weekend of, they can't make it because of that kind of stuff, or?
No, not so much. I mean, I think Comeback Kid is the only other one that we were concerned about, but there's no forecasting in terms of artists that we think, on a scale of 1 to 10, this band, like Kill Switch are super likely to show up. Under Oath, extremely unlikely.
Right.
Like there's no scale or anything. I think that unfortunately we all sort of know that that's a possibility, and that the closer we get, the more we're seeing the domino effect, where it's like tours got shifted, and all of a sudden it's like, because everyone else is trying to figure out what to do and how to make it work. And so, but I guess I maybe the hope, or like the silver lining, is that I feel that once we get inside the 4-week window, then at that point, it's got to be some form of an emergency that people were not able to forecast, because it's like, if you're a band, especially a reunion band, you're getting together to practice, you're communicating with the rest of the members consistently. Like, you would have had plenty of time to say, hey, we don't think we can do this for whatever reason. So, but it's like I think that everyone's showing one another a whole lot of grace and understanding in this time, and just recognizing that these are not normal circumstances, and nothing about this is a normal scenario. And so we've got to make the absolute best of what we've got, and take it one day at a time.
That brings me to another question. Now, this doesn't come out this week or next week. It comes out, a couple weeks down the road. So I'm gonna ask you some. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Nice. Some 2 weeks from now answers.
There's gonna be. I know you had a lineup, and there's a lot of bands that were kind of left off the lineup that maybe were on a lot of people's wish lists and such like that. There's also going to be a lot of pre-party shows that are going on the week of, not just in your area, but all over on the road to Furnace Fest, this, that, the other. Now, we just kind of went over that 68's not going to be there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you've replaced the Misery Signals slot yet, or was that with Bury Your Dead?
No, and technically so technically the way it works is Saturday was the only day that we had 31 artists. So 30 was our goal every day. And we added Jeremy Enoch back in on Saturday, which brought us up to 31. So technically we're replacing 68, Light the Torch, and Open Hand. Those are the three that have canceled.
Jeez,
I know. Out of the three, to be completely fair, Open Hand is the one that I'm like, no.
That's a band that I got into way later. I wasn't into them then, and I got into them way later in the last couple of years here. And then when they were on that show, I was like, oh, well, I'll be able to get to see them live, and now it's going to be really cool. But now that
they had some. It's like they had just same kind of thing. They have members that have other responsibilities that can't. It becomes too complicated, and so we are replacing each of those other bands to keep it. The goal is to always keep it of even 90 artists, 30 a day. But yeah, we're close. We have two bands confirmed for the three that I just mentioned, and then third one we're waiting. Hopefully today we'll have an answer. So we have an offer out, but just waiting.
Would these bands, I don't know, would they rhyme with On Broken Wings or Remembering Never or anything like that?
Well, I feel like I don't think that they do rhyme with either of those, unfortunately. But I do think that there's a lot of people that would not be disappointed if we took a few of the artists from the pre-parties or the after parties and put them into the actual fest. And it is, it's ironic how in a time and season where the possibilities are stronger than ever, that we'll have to continue playing kind of like musical chairs with the lineup, is that we do have some bands you guys happen to be here in the area. Right. So that's actually really helpful from a festival perspective.
Right, exactly. But, what are some, like, okay, I have two other questions that I'm really interested in, but I'll go with this one first. What was the band that everyone was most vocal about, outside of maybe some that we've already talked about, like the Chariot and such? What are some bands that people were on most of those wish lists that you couldn't just make happen, like for one reason or the other?
Yeah, Seven Angels, Seven Plagues was one that I remember seeing many, many times over. I'm trying to think of who else would have been. Strong Arm was on the lists so many times. There was even a what's that called? A petition that had gone out. That was like petitioning people to make this happen.
A change.org petition or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. The Dillinger Escape Plan.
Oh, that would have been a good one. I didn't even think about them because, again, I think that's probably done and passed with Greg.
Yeah. Sick of It All. Let's see if there are any other ones on here. Boys Night Out.
Oh, yeah, that would have been a good one.
Integrity.
Good one.
X Disciple X, which makes me think you should do them and Shockwave together if you're going to go there, Refused, Anti-Flag, some of these we already talked about. Thrice. American Nightmare. There's there's a bunch that we that just didn't. Sky Came Falling, Earth Crisis, Curl Up and Die. Quite a few that.
Are any of those that you actually reached out to?
Yeah. I think most, if not all of them, we probably reached out to.
Interesting.
I don't have enough time to look at the notes right now, but I'm pretty sure that those were all at one
point
or another.
I would feel
at least attempts.
Yeah, I feel like if you received a large influx of DMs or emails about certain bands, you would definitely, think about.
Yeah, we did. It was easy, right? It was easy to use the kind of like the wish lists that everyone kept giving so freely as inspiration because most of them were already on our radar anyway. But it's encouraging when you hear somebody telling you, like over and over again, this band, and sometimes we're hard of hearing, or we just didn't, it just maybe wasn't a band that we had been into as much, but clearly everybody else was. Right. And so just recognizing that's why we have a wide range of tastes. And,
you're not going to please everyone at the same time, especially in something like this. But And speaking of pleasing everyone, here's my next question. It's probably going to be a toughie. One of the things that I really disliked about, festivals in general is, there's stages that are playing at the same time all day, throughout the day. One of my biggest fears, obviously, with a lineup this gold, would be that there's going to be a lot of juggling of time spent between bands that you may want to see. I don't know when you're releasing the schedule, but I definitely am not worried, but I also am nervous about the schedule.
Sure. Well, you're right. There's gonna be juggling. There will be disappointments. The problem is, I guess, from my humble opinion, we put too many good bands all together, and we need more filler, like we need like half filler and half great bands. So then everybody could be like, well, of course, am going to choose Every Time I Die over filler, or I'm going to choose Walls of Jericho over filler.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's like, it's just, yeah, man, the schedule is going to come out probably a week before the festival. So everybody has enough time to put their favorites and kind of get organized. But it's thankfully, I guess the best news I can give you is that almost all of the bands, maybe with the exception of opening acts, are getting anywhere between 40 and 55 or 60 minutes to perform.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's not like the original Furnace Fest. It was like 25-minute super short sets for almost everybody.
Awesome.
I think you could, and then there's enough time in between bands. I think if you wanted to, you could catch a couple of songs from every single band. You'd have to be very strategic and you'd have to be a fast walker, but it could be done. You'd probably have to ignore some friends that are trying to stop you and talk to you about how cool, well, like With Honor set just was, but you're like, I'm just like,
it's going to be, we are, the Lambgoat crew that is coming with me that's something that we're like, because not only do we want to attend it as fans, right? Because that's like, even if we weren't covering it for Lambgoat, we would have gone. And sometimes I kind of wish in the last couple of weeks, months here, that we weren't covering it for Lambgoat. But because we are covering it, it's going to be even more double time, because obviously we have to be in certain places and at certain times, and we may not even as a group be together that much, during the day. But it is good to hear that there are going to be a little longer sets for some of those bands. But, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard to schedule something like, I don't know, when Poison the Well, because Poison the Well is a band that doesn't necessarily play often at all anymore. It's like, how do you choose who plays on the other stages alongside, that, knowing that the draw is going to be so big for certain bands.
Right. And at the end of the day, I think we've all had to admit that there's no right answer and there's no perfect answer, certainly. And we've just had to sort of try our best. One of the other unique scenarios within Furnace Fest is that the shed stage is the stage that most people remember as kind of like the main stage. Right. But it's actually more, that's actually not really the case this year. The case this year is that the main stage is more like a Warped Tour style stage in what was formerly the parking lot. And so we're just playing a delicate dance between crowd control and like potential overflow, potential there's fire marshal, like there's too many people in one place. So it's, the whole thing is a bit of a work of art trying to schedule this. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's going to be, I anticipate that people will both love us and hate us when they see the schedule, because it's like, too many good bands all at the same time.
I can agree to that. I think that I wouldn't want to be in those shoes as far as like strategically planning all that stuff. The only thing I can probably suggest is maybe having different genres play, you know what I mean? Like bands, in bigger bands in certain genres play, because you do have they are part of the scene, but some are like more emo, some are more indie, some are more, metal, some are more hardcore. Yeah. That you can maybe, kind of stack balance stuff.
And that's what we've tried. That's exactly right. That's what we've tried to do, is counterbalance the bands by style.
Yeah, maybe someone that, and again, these bands probably aren't playing the same day, but maybe someone wants to go see Taking Back Sunday and not Kill Switch Engage, and then therefore you can balance the two out. Obviously, they're probably playing different days, and
they are playing different days, but so everyone will be happy with those two. But but in the case of Poison the Well, it's like they're playing at the same time as Taking Back Sunday, so it's kind of like,
okay, well, I have to do what I have to do.
Right, not exactly the same time, but close, But you could still, according to this schedule, you could spend 20 minutes at Poison the Well before you had to go over to Taking Back Sunday. So
Chad, I'm not doing
people.
that. I'm not doing that, Chad. I'm going.
Right.
I'm going full
I
set.
I think it's going to be hard, but not that hard. I think people are going to. I mean, I've seen a lot of people's lists. I think a lot of people already have their priorities, and I'm sure there will be some disappointments, but I think in general, people will be able to look at the three options and go, "This is the one I want to see most." And if not, I'll split my time between. I'll go for 20 minutes over here and 30 minutes over here, or whatever. So
we can end on this positive note here. I think I'm going to be bringing the most amount of money with me for merchandise that I've ever brought to a show.
How much are you bringing? Can you disclose this amount?
We've talked about this because this is something in my friend group that we have kind of discussed, and it's up there.
It's up there.
It's up there.
Is it more than $5,000?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right, that's good.
No,
is it more than $2,500?
No, it's not that high. But I mean, like, if we're ballparking, it is a little lower than that. You know, it's anywhere between like, it's probably four figures.
So it's between $1,000 and $2,500.
Yeah, I think personally for me and the group that I'm with, not especially my buddy JP who has worked with me on this podcast. He's the videographer guy. Yeah, we've gone back and forth of like, it's going to be an insane. We've put money aside for just this particular.
Hey man, I mean, as of right now, this is the one time this happens.
Yeah.
So I get it, and we got some little surprises up our sleeves on the to try to sucker everyone. Not sucker. Did I just say sucker? I meant inspire everyone.
Yeah.
No, man. I think that we're all the same way. And we all see it as an opportunity to gather collectibles and to take some memorabilia back home with us to commemorate the weekend.
Even if it's really like a whole different, even if it's a whole suitcase that full of just we brought an empty suitcase, filled it up, and brought it back.
Yeah. Well, I was thankful when we talked with our security team and they agreed to let us approve backpacks and fanny packs because I mean fanny packs not as much, but I was thinking if people can't bring backpacks in, what do they do with merch? Like you just like carry around like T-shirts and vinyl, and that's going to get awkward. So I don't even know how it's going to work with a backpack. I feel like there's going to be a lot of like this is round one. I'm going to go back to the car. Backpack's full. Round two. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's going to be. Yeah,
the whole because I started collecting CDs again too, which is it's cool. Kind of annoying, especially because now you have to buy like a vinyl and a CD sometimes.
Right.
But on top of that, there's going to be the clothing side and whatever else like long sleeves, short sleeves, hoodies. Yeah. I mean, these are all things that I mean when you really get down to it.
Who's your number one? Whose merch booth are you going to beeline towards? Day one, you've stood in line for an hour and a half. You're in. You're like, okay, this is where I'm going.
All right, I have to bring up the lineup for you to answer this question. So
now you know how I feel. Yeah. It's like people like you asking me specific questions. I'm like, wait, I got to pull up the lineup.
Well, it's
overwhelming.
It's pretty easy. There's a lot of bands that obviously that I can see probably at a later date, but again, there's probably who knows, they may have merch specifically for a Furnace Fest, so that's going to be a whole other dumb idea thing that I've got to deal with.
There will be a couple of those guaranteed.
Yeah. The Bled's one that I'm probably going to go for.
Good call.
Poison the Well I have to because they're big for me. The Bled would be one. Misery Signals was going to be one, but unfortunately not. Comeback Kid is one. Man. I mean, I still want. I don't sell out of the long sleeve Furnace Fest shirt or save me one. I'll definitely pick one up when I get there. But I want one of those.
Nice.
Zaya would be one. 18 Visions. I mean, Cave In, Converge. All sorts. Most of these bands that I haven't seen in quite some time or never seen, obviously, that I really am looking forward to just getting a sense of like what their show is like, and then obviously like seeing them live and having a shirt or vinyl or CD or whatever from them is going to be. I mean, the list goes on, man. The list goes on. But a lot of these bands like the Bled that I never thought I'd see them again. Poison the Well. I went to the last little tour they did in like 15, and I was like, this is the last time I probably will see this band. And even when I had Chris, their drummer on the podcast, the biggest question was like, you know, when are we going to see you guys again? When are you going to tour again? And then kind of understanding the logistics of how hard it is for them to get together, and you know, where people are in their lives, and you know, how other people are in different bands or doing different things in general. So, you know, a part of me is going to support. Yeah, it definitely. And a part of me is going to support these artists in any which way I can. That's why I kind of like doing this podcast. That's why I kind of, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, buy merch from the merch table if you can, rather than like, you know, buying their album on Amazon or whatever else, because the band will see more of that in their pocket. And then I'm supporting their art, which hopefully will then allow them to continue doing what it is that I love that they do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, man. I completely, 100, like, if anything, I completely agree, but I also sort of feel like you know, like how long is merch going to last? And like, how, like, is everyone, like, how do you even, because as a festival, we've been working through this, like how much merchandise do we order and how much is too much and how much is not enough? And then like, it's crazy. So, we landed somewhere between conservative and aggressive, and just like, okay, let's kind of find the middle ground, and like, this is not the conservative one, but it's not the aggressive one, so hopefully it all works. But I'm just excited that we're gonna that we have this opportunity to once again, you know, be together and go chase down merch booths.
Yeah. And I mean, with like we said earlier in the show here, I look up old merch now, so that only makes me want to get more merch, you know. Now, because beforehand, you know, like I would look at my wardrobe and it would be all band hoodies or band t-shirts or something like that, right? And I wouldn't have like, you know, nice looking clothes, so to speak. But now, however, that's a whole aesthetic, right? Like I can dress like that still as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old man, and that's just my aesthetic, you know. That's so I like,
you can wear the Glassjaw t-shirt while recording a podcast, and you're good to go.
Well, I also have they're like my favorite band, so I have many Glassjaw t-shirts. I'm a diehard fan. But yeah, this is also their 20th anniversary show coming up. I know.
We had them confirmed for the May dates, and then it didn't quite work out for the.
I don't want to hear that, Chad. Come on, man.
Sorry, Dave. Sorry. You're supposed to tell me you didn't like them. That's what I thought you were going to say.
I can't even lie.
I'm just wearing the shirt, but I don't like them at all.
I can't lie like that. But yeah, again, this is something that I've been looking forward to for over 2 years now. Something I wasn't a part of in the beginning. Something I lived vicariously through. One of those things that us old people call a DVD. And I am beyond enthused to head over to Birmingham, Alabama, of all places, and experience not only covering the festival, but being an attendee, which, again, it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of time management, which I'm not the best at. But we will get it done, and I will enjoy. You know, it's going to be a great weekend, and I thank you for not only putting it on, but allowing us to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, likewise, and thanks again for having me. It's great to see you, and I'm excited for Furnace Fest in 2 weeks from whenever people are listening to this.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah. Well, we might put out a little earlier. You didn't give me any kind of like, you know.
No, yeah, do whatever you want.
So you know,
we can put it out tomorrow or today if you want.
Well, we do have a schedule, so I just
nice. No, I get it.
We have
you gotta
some room.
You gotta stay orderly. That's good.
We can switch around the next month, you know. But other than that, Chad, it was great chatting with you, man.
You too, Dave. Thanks.
Again, I look forward to meeting you all there, and I look forward to just having a great weekend in Alabama. And
same.
Hopefully, everything goes as according to plan for you guys, and maybe it will go so well that you will have to do a 2022 one.
Yeah, that would be a great problem to have.
Right?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, have a great day, man, and I'll see you in a month.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
Take it easy.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.